this is Lisa from coochieCoochieCoo.com. Today I'm going to show you how to turn a felted wool sweater into a really cool Christmas stocking with embroidered snowflakes on it. You'll need a felted wool sweater, some fabric shears for cutting the sweater, embroidery thread. I suggest using white or silver to make the snowflakes really sparkle and shine. You will need embroidery needles. I suggest using embroidery scissors to cut the threads rather than using your big fabric shears. Then you can download from my website the snowflake stocking pattern, which you put together, and you use this to trace out the stocking shape. You can either trace these snowflake shapes freehand or use a carbon transfer paper. What I really suggest using though is this Stick and Stitch by Sulky. This is a really great product for transferring embroidery patterns. You can print right on it from your printer. This is the back side, which is shiny. You don't want that. You're going to print onto this rough fabricy side. You can download a separate file from my website, which is for this embroidery part. What you do is you print it out on the fabricy side and you put it onto the fabric so that you can just embroider right over it. To put the stocking together, once you have actually done all the embroidery, you will need red thread or some sort of thread to match your sweater. You can sew it by hand with your red thread, or you can sew it by machine. If you're going to sew by machine, you're going to use a universal needle. I'm using 100 size. 110 is also really good. Because the felted wool is very thick, I also suggest you use a walking foot, which really helps sew over that bulky fabric. I have a tutorial on my website on using the walking foot. I will link down at the bottom of the video to that tutorial, as well as a tutorial on how to felt wool sweaters in your washing machine, as well as links to all of the materials needed. Let's get started. First, let's get the pattern all set. You're going to want to trim off the side of page number 1, join it together so that the triangles form rhombuses, tape it together, and then let's cut out along these outer edges. And here it is. Next, let's get the Stick and Stitch ready. Here's your page, and again, you're going to cut out along the edges. Notice that this doesn't have the whole stocking. It continues actually this down here and over here, but this is where the main parts of the embroidery are that we need a guide for. So we're just going to do this part. And here we have this. Here's your sweater that you're going to be using. Now what we're going to do is position the pattern like this. We're going to use the natural edge here of the sweater, which is also nice in this case because it's got this little striped ribbing, which looks pretty nice. It's going to go like that. Make sure that you have enough space for your stocking pattern to fit in. Here we've got plenty of space, but some sweaters, which might shrink a lot when they get felted, might be too small. If that's the case, when you're printing out the pattern, you can scale it down a little bit, maybe by 80% or more or less, according to how big your sweater is. Now, let's cut open the sweater so that we can do one side at a time. Find your inside seam. Here's mine. It's sometimes hard to find when the sweater is felted, and cut down all the way. And here is the front of your sweater, all ready to use. Now, remember, we're going to use this ribbing here as the top of the stocking. So the pattern piece is going to go like this. However, we want to do our embroidery. So notice that this, you can see how it doesn't go all the way up. There's a little bit left over like this. So let's stick on our embroidery. We need to remove this top layer here, which is the sticky part. Peel that off. And we're going to put it in this area here. Don't stick it onto the paper. Just keep it about here. Let's see, you can kind of eyeball it. That matches up like that. You can see through it. So pull that out and just stick this down like this. Make sure that you're pressing it down really well from the center all the way out. You can see it's pretty well attached. It's flexible and it stays on the wool really well. Now, let's get embroidering. Let's start with this first one here. Use all 6 strands of a white DMC embroidery thread, or another brand if you want. You can find detailed instructions on how to embroider these snowflakes in another tutorial and another video of mine. You can find links to those down below in either the tutorial or the video description. For this particular one, you start with a French knot, and then you do simple embroidery, working your way to the center, and you work your way back out. You do this for each of the 3 snowflake embroidery designs, and do it for all around the entire stocking. Then let's go on to the smaller stars. I'm using a silver embroidery thread, but I'm only using 3 strands. It's a metallic type and it separates easily. Start by doing the center cross. So start from the top and go down into the center. Then we'll go off to the side, 90 degrees over from the outside, again right into the center, into that same hole. Then on the bottom, come out and go back right into the center again. Make sure you're going into that same center hole each time so that all of the lines are connected. Then let's do the 4th one at a 90-degree angle, right into the center. After you've done this main cross, we're going to move on to the diagonal lines. Let's make sure you're pulling it nice and tight. Okay, now that we're done these first 4, let's go on to these diagonal ones. So this 45 degree, again, pull out from the outside, go right into the center there, that same hole. Again, another diagonal from the outside. Pull all the strands. This thread separates really easily, so you have to be careful at each stitch to be pulling all 3 of the strands together. And do the other stitches here, so you have an 8-spoked star, and work your way around the rest of the stocking to do all of the stars. Make sure that you are embroidering all of the snowflakes. There are 2 of them at the bottom, which are a little tricky. This one here is partially cut off of the embroidery template. This other one isn't on it at all because it fell off the edge of the page. But if you take the actual pattern, you can see where it is in relation to the other snowflakes. So just kind of do it freehand. It's pretty easy to do. Okay, now that we're done doing all of our embroidery, we need to remove the excess stick and stitch before rinsing it off. So peel off an edge and just use regular scissors, not your fabric scissors, and trim off the excess, cutting around the stitching. Make sure you don't cut into the stitching or the fabric. So now you've got all of your embroidery ready. You've taken off all of the extra stick and stitch. You can see this is more or less how it's going to look. All right, now let's head over to the sink and wash the rest of the stick and stitch off. Okay, here we are at the sink and we've got our stocking here. And we're going to turn on the water, warm water. It's better with warm, warm water dissolves it faster. And we start putting our snowflakes with the stick and stitch still attached under the water. And you'll see, you rub it a bit and you'll see that actually it starts dissolving pretty quickly, but you're going to have to help it a little bit. So use your thumbs, in particular your thumbnails, and just gently rub. Just gently rub. You can see there's some kind of stuck here around the French knots. So just gently do everything around the stars, the snowflakes, around everything. All the way. Once you've washed all of the stick and stitch off, just give your sweater a very gentle squeeze. You don't want to be rough with it. Also because the sweater tends to get these fluffy bits. We don't want to mess around with that too much. Okay, kind of just gently pull the fabric so that it's not distorted or anything, and lay it out flat so that it can dry. After your sweater is dried, iron it with steam on hot with a protective ironing cloth. Put your template on top. Make sure you're covering all of your embroidery. Here, I moved a little bit down. That's fine. It's a little bit longer. That's okay, as long as it gets covered up. Then trace around it with chalk or some other marking tool that will erase. You're going to be sewing along this line and it will be visible. So make sure it's something that will disappear. Okay, there we go. Next, cut out around, leaving some space around the outline. Place your backing fabric wrong side up on the table. Put your stocking piece right side up. Put them so that the edges match up over here and that there's space all around for you to sew. Make sure that these edges are matched up perfectly. And then we're going to pin. Then cut out again around here. It doesn't have to be perfect again. Take one of the strips, fold it along the green line, and let's cut. We're going to make a hanging strip, or strap rather. Let's see. Here we go. Let's make it a little bit shorter, and we'll make it a little bit more narrow. Just let's even up the edges. You can make it any size you want. Just make sure that it's long enough to hang by. Figure where your hanging loop is going to go. I want it to go up here at the top, going off to the side. However, because the wool is thick, I'm going to stagger it a little bit. So open up here, let's remove that pin. Put it inside like that. Make sure that it's going beyond here. We can move it in a little bit like that. And go like this. Make sure that it's off to the side, that it will be sewed in here. Let's get it nice and pinned in place. Okay, and there we have it. Now you're going to sew along the trace line all around like this. Remember to use the walking foot. Okay, now we go all around. We've gone all around here. We've done a little extra here and a little bit extra here just to keep it a little bit smoother. Now, let's trim the edges with our scissors. We're going to go just a little bit from the edge here. Be careful. Make sure it's close to the edge, but not too close. Okay, when you get to the end, you need to be really careful not to cut that. So use smaller scissors just to make it easier and cut very carefully here to make sure that you are not cutting the things. See? There we go. Do the same thing on the back. And there we have it. If you got little fuzzy bits, you can just kind of shave off the little bits that you, so that it, don't catch your embroidery obviously. There we go, to make sure that you don't have any bits of fuzz. And your stocking is now ready to hang up and fill up with gifts. Head on over to coochiecoocieCoo.com to get the free templates for this project and lots of other great sewing projects as well. Also, make sure you subscribe to my channel here on YouTube. See you soon.